I have a couple items that have been sitting outside rusting over the last few years that I've been wanting to take time to remove the rust from, but just don't want to make the time for doing it by hand. Some grill tools that just hang out in the side of the grill and get rusty over time. It includes this old plow that came from my parents, a scooter that belongs to my granddaughters and got left outside, and I collect old railroad stakes that I use for craft projects. I was really excited when my wife told me we had received this Hauke rust removal fast acting spray to demonstrate for you. Out of the box, it comes with 2 bottles of the rust removal spray, 2 hand sprayers, and a pair of gloves. Directions and use warnings are on the side of the box. Water is needed for rinsing off the rust remover. Have a spray hose or bucket of water handy. For many applications, the directions recommend having a brush handy. When using this product, always wear gloves, preferably use outdoors in a well-ventilated area, and wear safety goggles if possible. Directions for use: spray on rusted surfaces, let sit for 5 to 10 minutes, rinse with water, let dry completely, and then paint if that is your next step. Opening the bottle, I'm going to puncture the safety seal with the hose from the spray nozzle. The liquid is mostly clear with a slight yellow tinge. Put the cap on. The spray head has 2 settings, stop or off, and a wide spray. First item I'm going to test is this set of grilling tongs. I'm only going to do the end where the tongs hang on the side of my grill out in the weather. I am not going to do the end which actually touches food. Spray it on. Got to pump it a few times to prime it. I'm going to spray both sides of that. I'm going to set that down. We'll come back to that in 10 minutes. All right, 5-minute mark with the tongs, just using my fingers with the gloves on, and that rust is coming off pretty good. We'll let that set for a little longer and see what happens with it. All right, it's around 15 minutes since I sprayed the handle of these tongs, dipping my brush into the dirty water from the other items I've been doing, and rinsing this off. I would say, wow, that looks almost new, except for the old wood handle. I am very impressed with how that turned out. So I would say definite thumbs up with it handling this chrome-like metal on these old tongs. All right, the next item I'm going to work on is my granddaughter's scooter. So I'm going to spray this on the rusted areas of the scooter. And let's just watch this for 10 minutes, see what happens. And in the last 5 minutes, the amount of rust that's visible in the pitting is diminishing. In the same 5 minutes of time, the spray that I put on the back brake of the scooter has actually made an even more visible change to the rust. It's completely changed in color. It almost looks like it's like healing together. All right, we're coming up on 10 minutes. I'm going to take this brush and dip it in the water. That is noticeably better up here at the front of the scooter. That's definitely better. All right, let's check the back brake. It's changed color. Take our brush with water on it. There's definitely dirty, gross, rusty water coming off the sides of this. So there's still some pitting to it, but the rust color itself is remarkably gone. So on the scooter, I would say check. It did a good job. Now we're going to move on to something a whole lot more challenging. My parents' old garden plow. I'm just going to do a small section of this for the demonstration. I'm going to spray on a good coat of that. You can see that running down nice and shiny there. Almost instantly on the least rusted section of the plow, really shiny areas started to come through where there was just ages of oxidation. All right, we're at the 5-minute mark, and you can see the area that was oxidized is definitely looking better. It's changing as I rub my finger with the glove on it. At 5 minutes, that's definitely making a difference. We'll let that soak for another 5 minutes and then we'll wash it off with the brush. All right, it's been just over 10 minutes. Taking my brush, putting it in my little tray of dirty water from the other items we've cleaned so far. Rub it over this small section of plow that has been sitting outside in the side of my parents' house for at least 40 years. So the area that had basic oxidizing is almost like new and shiny. The edge, which has far more rust, the rust has been substantially reduced. It is still there. So we'll let that dry and see what happens with it later. I got delayed in rinsing this one off because it started raining as I was working on the project. So I'm going to use my hose and rinse this off and see what happens. I'm actually really impressed by this. I know there's still some black marks that you're seeing on the video, but the majority of the rust is gone. My hunch is another treatment or so, and this will be cleaned up almost like new. So I'm going to say rust removal on this plow that's been sitting outside for 40 years is job well done. All right, I think the ultimate test is going to be with my old rusty railroad spike. I'm going to pour the rust remover straight into this bottle. Take the tip of the railroad spike, stick it down in there, and we'll let that set for several hours and see what that looks like later. All right, last item, my railroad spike, which I can't tell you how many decades old this is and been sitting outside. I dipped the tip down into the solution. I actually let that set for a few hours. And at the same time, I sprayed the top. Let's see what happens as I rinse this off. Oh my gosh, look at this. I hope this shows up as well on camera. This is what it looked like before, and that is after. I am immensely impressed with the change of color and how much rust has been removed. I actually didn't know that's what this steak looked like new. Let's rinse off the head. Just really curious. You can see all the rust coming off into the water. All right, just using the glove here, not even using the brush. Look at that. Once again, you can see where I sprayed and where it did not hit the old metal. I'm quite surprised. All right, the railroad steak, I would say we have another success. Since filming the original video, I continue to find items around my house that are rusty, like this hammer and screwdriver. You just never know how many things you have that need to be cleaned. So I just realized this is my 5th rust removal project, and I've taken these same pair of gloves on and off at least 5 times, and they're still holding up too. I'm impressed by that. All right, let's go to the screwdriver. Well, that rust has already come off of that. Let's just dip that in the water. Use my trusty little brush. That is looking much better. Awesome. Rinsing off the hammer. That's actually been sitting outside for a few months based on the project site that I just found this at. All right, after all my little rust removal projects, I would say I'm definitely sold on the Hockey rust remover.